Hello, and welcome back to the Higher Paradigm YouTube channel and podcast. I am your host, Laura. So, today I want to talk about pop culture as a whole and how evil hides in plain sight. And this has been going on for decades. And we are just now, as a society, starting to wake up and notice or be willing to express the truth of what we're seeing. I mean, some of the stuff that I'm going to share happened in the 90s, and yet there was pedestaling and propping up of certain celebrities that are still being propped up, are still being celebrated and praised. And yet it's pretty obvious that there's something nefarious and demonic at play. And it just keeps getting worse and worse. Like within our culture, within pop culture, the dark, satanic / demonic things that are happening and that are becoming more and more mainstream, it's messed up. That's the best way that I can put it. And we need to see it for what it is, because if we just continue as a society to look the other way or act like this is normal or pretend this isn't happening because you really like this celebrity, or if you admit that there's something messed up about this person or their lifestyle or whatever, then it's going to shatter the facade. And that's really unsettling. I get that. We need to stop being inspired by and following the guidance of those that are not of service to the good. They're actually of service to something sinister and dark and evil. And we need to cultivate that discernment to recognize these things for what they are. Whether or not you're like, oh my gosh, this has always been happening. Well, just because it's always been happening, or just because it's been accepted for far too long, doesn't mean we have to keep accepting these things as, oh yeah, they're a role model. I want to keep being inspired by them, and I'm going to let my children. No, the time is now. In my opinion, things are getting out of control in our culture. It's like the wild, wild west. There are no limits. There is no inappropriate or appropriate. There's a lot of hypocrisy. There's a lot of evil hiding in plain sight. There's a lot of subliminal messaging that is not steering our culture, our society, our humanity in the right direction. I'm going to start with Russell Brand. His celebrity started demonically. He is a self-proclaimed sex addict, drug addict, and he has freely expressed that he slept with thousands of women, and he is in recovery, and he's been saved and has found God while he's preaching the good word. And while he has written a book, How to Become a Christian in 7 Days, which I will talk about in a second, simultaneously, he's being taken to court by, I think, 4 or 5 different women for sexual assault and rape, one of which was the age of 16 at the time of quote unquote consensual sex. I say quote unquote because the girl was 16, but he was 30. He was a grown ass man, and this was a young girl. She might have been the age of consent in Britain, yet she was 16, though. A lot of us know that our prefrontal cortex doesn't close. We aren't fully grown adults in our brains until we are in our mid-20s. So that means we're not processing or making decisions from a place of groundedness or full understanding of the consequences to our actions, or we might be very impulsive. We might do things for the wrong reasons, right? Especially a 16-year-old girl. There are 3 or 4 other women, some are stateside, who are claiming that he allegedly raped or assaulted them. These victims have proof that they were victimized by Russell Brand. They have text messages. And within these text messages, they are explicitly describing like how they felt about what he did to them. And he's apologizing. This started, I think, in 2016. Shortly after he was accused was when he became a devout Christian and he was baptized. So I think the timing of his choice to become a Christian is curious. I'm not saying it isn't authentic, but it's curious. And now here we are in 2026, and he's going to court to face these women. He still is saying that he did not do anything wrong. It's really interesting because, yeah, while he has been an open book as far as sleeping with thousands of women, he is using that openness to basically be the evidence that he would not lie. Because why would I lie if I told all of this? But I think that's exactly the point. I think he's hiding behind his truth to cover up this lie, not just with that truth, but also with the Bible. He's walking into court with his Bible in his hand. He's reading scripture as the trial is taking place. I mean, P. Diddy did the same thing. He brought a Bible to court. And if you have followed or you know anything about what has gone on within his case, it's pretty obvious this man has gotten off easy and he did a lot of damage to a lot of women. And the consequences he has suffered is minuscule in comparison to what he did to some of these women. So here we are now, Russell Brand taking a page from the same playbook, bringing a Bible into court, acting as though he's devout. And now this man has a book called How to Become a Christian in 7 Days. And this is troubling. Why would we want to take a page out of Russell Brand's book, first of all? Second of all, becoming not just a Christian, but living a spiritual life at all is not something that can be accomplished in 7 days. He's on this book tour promoting this book, How to Become a Christian in 7 Days, while he also is in this trial with women who are accusing him of sexual violence. And if you watch some of his interviews, he speaks very quickly, almost so that you can't think straight. He's very strategic in the way that he speaks. You can tell that he just knows how to manipulate with his words. And I mean, you can be the judge if you go and check out some of the recent journalists who have interviewed him. Some of them seem as though they're buying into him being a reformed human being, and others seem to question him. And it's interesting when he is questioned and he perceives the questioning as something negative or as though they doubt him. You can see the truth in his eyes and you can hear it in his voice and the way he responds. It's like he's keeping his lid on as to not be seen for who he truly is. So I wanted to talk about him because this is not a spiritual role model. If you believe that somebody could have all of this sexual engagement with thousands of women, also be under the influence of drugs, to be able to womanize like that, I don't know that he could respect a woman. So with that said, is it actually possible that he could not have raped or assaulted these women, and yet there are women that are coming forward and saying that he did? And I mean, that's just something to investigate for yourself. I just feel like it's so obvious to me when I look at him and I hear him speak and his behavior, his tone. It's like he wants to create a following. He wants to guide people down a dark road. And I don't think he is fully healed. I don't think he's saved, because somebody who is saved, when they are accused of being a violator, even if he believes in his heart that he did not violate these women believe that. So to just discredit them and to totally invalidate their experience, to me, does not sound like a reformed person, a person who is walking alongside Jesus Christ or on a spiritual journey. It does not sound like a man who is capable of truly guiding you to become a Christian in 7 days. So that's just my opinion. And I wanted to share that because we're not just seeing this with Russell Brand, these fake, phony, baloney Christians or spiritual leaders who actually are not walking with God, they're walking with something dark. So, I mean, this is just one example. There are several examples in this realm right now that we're seeing. Um, yeah, and he's just a really juicy one, I thought. So it's the one I wanted to share. Another example of hiding in plain sight evil and something nefarious and demonic going on. And this is a sensitive one, and this was a really hard one for me to really accept, is Michael Jackson. Now we have a new movie out about Michael Jackson and his whole childhood and leading into his career, which from what I have learned and heard, this movie is not true to the actual story of his childhood and his upbringing. It was very dark and allegedly, reportedly, I guess I'll say, um, he endured a lot of sexual trauma himself. The pedestal that he was quickly put on while also enduring abuse at the hands of his father, this man has a dark past. And he hid behind Neverland Ranch. He hid within the walls of that ranch. I mean, there was so much evidence that this man was a Pied Piper and that he was luring children into his spaces. He had children sleeping in his bed. His bed. He had children sleeping in his bed. Now, if you are a parent and Michael Jackson invited your child over, how would you feel if you found out that your child slept in Michael Jackson's bed with Michael Jackson? We're continuously overlooking some of the details. There's documentaries about this, and from the alleged victims and housekeepers and people who were in his circle, who were a part of his life, have shared the dark truth of Michael Jackson. Go and find the interview that Oprah Winfrey did with Michael Jackson in either 92 or 93. And this was, I think, right around the time that he was first accused of childhood sexual abuse. In the interview, he gives a tour of his ranch and he goes to the theater and he shows within that theater that there are rooms with glass windows, rooms off of this theater with large queen or king size beds in them. And in this video, he describes that these rooms were created for children with cancer. Over and over and over again, he says in this interview with Oprah that this space is for children with cancer. But if you go back and you really dig into, who he was spending his time with, what children he was spending his time with, you will see that they were child celebrities or children without cancer. So he did this interview because he was up against an allegation and he wanted to make it abundantly clear that he loves children. And so he wanted to showcase his world. There is artwork in the background that honestly turned my stomach a little bit. And part of the interview with her was that he referred to himself as similar to Jesus Christ because Jesus Christ loved children. And I think to compare yourself to Jesus Christ and the work that he did in this world and his type of love for children compared to Michael Jackson's type of love for children, or Michael Jackson as a person, a man who is a performer, who every time he dances on stage, he grabs his junk and he has beds for children and he sleeps with children. I mean, there's just so much evidence that what we have been made to believe is not true. I could go on and on about Michael Jackson. There's so many things, including the music that he made and the lyrics of his songs. There's so many different pieces that you could pick apart with this. But the point that I want to make is if you engage in any of it, then you're allowing that darkness into your life in some way, shape, or form. And if you engage in it, you're perpetuating it. So I think it's important that we know what's like it, that we recognize that there's something more here. Now, could there, this is just my supposition. This is not, I don't know. No. But again, I do have a tendency to trust victims who have the courage to come forward and share their story. And there are victims, there's documentaries, they've been deleted. Finding Neverland, I watched that. That was back in 2018. Then HBO got rid of it because of why? I don't know. Maybe because the people that own his estate don't want that information out there in the world because they want his estate to keep making money so they can keep making money. Who the frig knows? All of it is not what we have been told is true. So the whole point for you to see things a little bit through a different lens, maybe get curious, maybe accept that maybe we don't know everything and that we shouldn't pedestal celebrities. We shouldn't pedestal even someone like Michael Jackson, who did make a tremendous impact in the world, a tremendous impact. The king of pop. Yes, but at what cost? To himself, obviously, but also to those who idolized him. His life ended sadly by a doctor-assisted overdose, which makes me wonder also why. In one hand, he was fighting the record company, but at the same time, he was a dark, dark, dark person. He is a legend and we pedestal him, and it's just, no, 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 no. Yes, probably treated shitty by the record company. And did he die at the hands of somebody else? Yes. Was there something bad that happened to him? Yes. That I'm not discrediting or discounting any of that. This is just my opinion. I don't believe he was a good person at all. I think he was hiding in plain sight and hiding behind the walls of his quote unquote love for children and his ability to perform. Beyonce. I bring her up because I've learned a lot about her over the last several months too. Last couple years, really. And the one thing I just want to share about her, I don't want to get too deep into Beyonce. She brings about this ultra feminism. But what is very questionable to me is that while she's persuading women to not need a man, to be a feminist, she's also married to a man. That man is the mother of her children. And she literally just walked a red carpet as a family with her husband and her oldest child. When other girls, like younger girls, are looking up to someone like Beyonce and saying F men, or even women in our generation are saying F men and using Beyonce as an example, remind them, well, this is the same woman that has a husband. In alignment with this topic, women broadcasting on their TikToks that they are teaching their young girls to hate men. But what I'm discovering is that a lot of these women teaching their girls to hate men, and they're on TikTok and they're saying they're giving up men, or they hate men, or men are useless, or men are all bad. They're also in a relationship with a man, or they had children with a man. So it's really important that we see these people for who they are They're all frauds. They're all fake. They want clicks. They want followers. They want to create controversy. They want hateful comments so that people are fighting. These are not people who are working for the good. They're working for something that's trying to divide us as a society. They might think they're doing good, but where is that messaging coming from? The most important thing is to recognize that these people are complete hypocrites and they don't actually live in the way that they're telling other people to live. It's really bizarre that this is happening in our culture, but it is happening. There are so many women, it's not just Beyonce either or TikTokers. There are so many quote unquote feminists in the entertainment industry and the celebrity culture that are married or in relationships with men. In the other hand, I feel sorry for the man who's in a relationship with a toxic feminist who hates men because God knows what he's going through. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, the things that are just in TV shows, everything is so saturated in sex. I really do feel like this is the way evil penetrates our culture is penetrates of all the words for me to use. um Infiltrates is the word I was actually looking for. The sex stuff infiltrates our culture to create a numbness and to disconnect us from the sacredness of sex and pleasure and intimacy, romance, and what is true. I would say a good 85% of the shows that I start to watch on Netflix always open up with sex scenes. And it is to lure people in. It's just so in our faces now. And it's like um softcore porn/porn. It's not even just softcore porn anymore. It's like we're seeing way too much. And also what we're seeing is not reality. The kids in their 20s and even early 30s, they're watching this stuff and they're thinking like violence and choking a woman out or, doing whatever it is normal. And that's what sex looks like. But that's not what sex actually looks like. Same thing, I'm sure, goes for porn. And God knows what porn looks like these days, but it's not real. And yet, this is what men and women are both thinking sex looks like. And it's getting more and more forced down our throats. And another example of this is the show Euphoria. I did start watching that show for season 1 and a little bit of season 2. And then at some point I was like, this is just fucked up. Why is it so hyper focused on sexualizing women and this violent sex and just uber sex all over the place? And I don't know. For me, when I see things like that and it's just like every other scene, it's something or another relating to sex, I feel that this is Satan at work. Like the director, the producers, whatever, they're working for something dark and they're bringing it into the mainstream. So they're doing this for the darkness. This is one of the tools that Satan has is to bring humanity down with demonizing sex. I don't know. It's just very dark. I feel like as a society, we need to be very aware of what we're watching and be honest with ourselves about what we're seeing and what we're exposing ourselves to, but also what the generations behind us are exposed to, because it's all, it just feels like it's right in our faces that Satan is doing his work and he's more accessible to all of us. And with the power of technology and social media and AI and whatever else, it's getting easier and easier for this messaging, trying to separate us, trying to pedestal or prop up pedophiles and sexual deviants and hide behind the best way that these demons can lure people in, which is through Christianity and the Bible. Again, Russell Brand carrying a Bible into, the courthouse and then writing a book about becoming a Christian while he also is a deviant still. And it's obvious that Satan knows how to manipulate people and he knows how to enslave celebrities to do his bidding. And it's very important that we see this clearly so that we can turn away from these things. We can pray for humanity to turn to the light and not give power to these entities. And we can help humanity by not subscribing to any of this, but also speaking truth to what is happening or what we're seeing or what's going on in our society and in celebrity culture. Celebrity culture is not reality. A lot of these celebrities live a life that we do not actually aspire to live in. And we need to stop pedestaling them and thinking that they are better than us. With that kind of power, it's dangerous for our society. And I am grateful that we are in a place where so many of us are waking up to see things for the way that they are, but we have a ways to go because in the mainstream media, we are still propping up people like Michael Jackson, and we're giving the floor to people like Russell Brand. Now, in some ways, I do feel like it's a good thing that journalists are interviewing him because certain journalists are seeing him for who he truly is. But in other ways, it's like these journalists are feeding the beast. And so why are we giving this power to this person? But I think it's important that we keep talking about this and we keep shedding light on this so that eventually the majority of us are seeing this clearly and we're not subscribing to the bullshit that is celebrity culture and demons hiding in plain sight. And last point I want to make that really shatters the illusion, which most of us know about, is the Epstein files. And this is about our government and what our government is hiding and how people in positions of power within our government are hiding things and trying to keep the illusion alive. It is obviously celebrity culture too. They're all involved in it. They're all intertwined. And that's the thing, is that Hollywood works for the government. So it makes a lot of sense that there is such interweaving of different areas within our culture because they really are interconnected. So if we're looking at what's going on with the Epstein files and how there's been so many redactions and so much hidden in plain sight with that, and we also look at Epstein, he was not the one in charge. He was a mule. He was appointed to be the one to play the role of the one who is in charge, but really there are even higher powers at play. If we know anything about Epstein, he was not a millionaire all on his own. Where did his money come from? He was just a puppet who was not running the show, but he was running the show because he was given permission to. And there's so many conspiracy theories or beliefs or opinions, however you want to say it, or hypotheses around who owned Epstein, who was the one in control of what he was doing, telling him what he can and can't do. Now, obviously, Epstein himself was a monster. He was a pedophile. He was just a pervert, however you want to say that. But he was appointed to the position he held by powers that wanted him to have that position because he was a perfect fit for it. It's pretty obvious. And the powers that wanted him to hold that position are clearly and obviously those that have a lot of money and really enjoy sadistic and satanic play. and they want to keep it as hush hush as possible while also having access to everything and anything that they desire. What I have learned about the Epstein files is that this was not only a lot of abuse or trafficking and exploitation of women and children, but there was also even more sinister and dark things going on within the Epstein world that are really disturbing, things that were done to children and things that they were forced to participate in. And it's really demonic. It's really got to be something evil at play with all of this. And we are still being gaslit and manipulated. There's only so much information that we're getting. Our government is hiding a lot of things. Even celebrity culture within this is hiding. I mean, there's so many people on that list and they're hiding things. And now we're months later and it's like, we're still hearing a little bit about the Epstein files, but it's like, if it's fading away. And there's other things that the mainstream media is trying to turn our attention to and distract us, like shiny things, with this war and, whatever else is going on in our culture right now. They're all distractions from us being able to see and talk about and continue to harp on what's happening in actuality, like the dark things that are going on. I have thought for years that COVID and I don't know, just so many different things that were a big deal happening in our mainstream. I have felt as though this is all going on and this is exploding the way that it is within our culture because it's in an attempt to hide something. And then the Epstein files came out and it's right in our faces, but there's still so much that's hidden. And it's all to confuse us, to instill fear, there's just so many reasons why we're being manipulated and gaslit. Not just because they don't want us to know who they are, but also what happens next? What actually happens next for us if we all know that these are the types of people that we look up to or that we are inspired by, but also that run our country? What happens as a people? How do we topple and dismantle it all and find good people who are not overtaken or owned by another power, higher power? Like, I don't even think Trump runs the show. I think someone runs Trump. And I think that once he got into office, at some point, he no longer had sovereignty. He no longer was completely himself. I don't know. For me, it feels like something has happened in the last several months with him that, unless he's just showing us who he really is, and he's not who he was because he's actually something dark. I don't know. But the point is, we need to take these people, these entities off of their pedestal. So I do want to also add that a lot of the information that I get, it is not through mainstream media. It is through YouTube and the independent journalists that have their own channels and they have their own podcasts. They have their own platform to do their work. And it's important to find journalists or news that is far away from mainstream outlets like CNN, NBC, ABC, MSNBC, even Fox, because they work with the government. They are owned by the government or paid by the government and or celebrity culture or however the intertwining is, to spin a narrative that suits their needs. I believe mainstream media is a part of the problem within our culture because I believe it's gaslighting and manipulating us all the time and playing to our emotions or our fears. Yeah, that's my opinion. But with that said, because that's how I feel, I encourage everyone who's listening to this, if you don't already, go find your information elsewhere. Get off of mainstream news outlets because they're becoming archaic. They're losing their following and views, and there's a reason for that. I don't know how I stumble across some of the independent journalists that I do. I follow independent journalists for pop culture and get a lot of my information from Maureen Callahan, and her podcast is called The Nerve. It's authentic and raw, and she's so genuine, and sometimes she's brutally honest. She does not talk politics whatsoever, but she's very intuitive, very informative and entertaining and hilarious. She helps to view things through a different lens. Will speak to that feeling of things being off and wrong, and she will speak truth to things that are not in alignment with mainstream views. And she does not give a flying fig if it offends who it offends, or if somebody does not agree with her, she will call it out and shed light on it. So I highly recommend watching The Nerve. Sometimes she says things that feel a little off-putting to me, but you take what resonates and leave behind the rest. And overall, I think she's doing some good in the world because she's bringing so much truth to some effed up stuff that is just normalized within our culture. And I think it's important that we see it for what it is. That's the pop culture side. I also watch other independent journalists that talk more about just the culture in general. They are commentating on things that they're witnessing, and they're giving their opinion and also their intuitive truth to it. And oh my gosh, there's a variety of commentators and independent journalists that I watch, from Megyn Kelly to Candace Owens to Amala Ekpanobi. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. Amala talks about culture, and she commentates a lot on what she sees on TikTok and social media and speaks truth to it. There's a variety of other independent journalists and commentators that I watch as well. But the point is it's important to get more of a independent journalist take on things, because they don't have any reason to dispel untruths. They have a platform of their own. They're not working for anybody. And most of them are in a neutral position. They're just seeing one side or both sides or all sides, and they have an opinion. And they also do their research. They also dive deep and they find information. It blows my mind how much information they're able to find. But I guess when you have the resources, you can get a lot to back up your opinion and the truth that you're dispelling. So I think it's very important to look elsewhere for news and information. And I do think it is important. I know a lot of intuitives, a lot of people in the spiritual world don't want to watch the news, or they don't feel called to watch the news, or like follow pop culture or whatever. That's not how I feel. I feel like that is part of figuring out what truth is and having that discernment. And I think it's important that we know what's going on so that we know even more who we are and what we believe. And we can anchor into that, and we can choose what feels right and true for us. And for me, I love to talk about these things and share, my perspective on it. So of course I want to stay connected to pop culture and what's going on in the world, because I have an opinion about it. So there's nothing bad or wrong as a spiritual person who is very much intuitively connected to also be connected to what's going on in the world. It's, again, having that discernment and having a practice in place that grounds you, connects you back in with God, your spirit team, the wise, well, and healed, all the things, and center yourself. And also having boundaries. I'm not always watching what's going on. I'm also very disconnected. I spend a lot of time prioritizing self-care, my children, my family, my businesses, all the things. And I have like a lot of limits with all the things. So I definitely encourage that as well. Don't get caught up in the whole, I guess. I will leave it there for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that this episode resonated with you. If it did and you feel called to continue the discussion, feel free to comment below. If you want to start a private conversation with me about this topic, then you can definitely email me at shstudios32323@gmail.com. And as always, please share this episode or this podcast with anyone you believe would resonate with its content. Follow, like, subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. And I look forward to connecting with you again in the next episode. Much love and many blessings to you.